Last week, I introduced you to the 11 executive functioning skills. The skills that govern how we manage our time, how we manage our emotions, our relationships, our goals, and ourselves. And I want to ask you something today. When I listed those skills, time management, emotional control, task initiation, working memory, organization, flexible thinking, impulse control, perseverance, sustained attention, planning, self-awareness, did any of them stop you? Did any of them make you think, oh, that is why? Because if they did, I need you to stay with me for the next 10 minutes, because what you just felt is not an accident. It is the beginning of something that is going to change the way you see yourself. My name is Ashley Mangione. I'm an executive functioning coach, an ADHD specialist, a former classroom teacher, published author, speaker, and mom of 3. And in every single session I have ever done with children, teenagers, college students, parents, professionals, and entrepreneurs, there is always a moment. The moment when the person across from me realizes that the thing they may have been struggling with for years, the disorganization, the missed deadlines, the emotional reactions that they could not control, the task they could not start, the time that kept disappearing, it has a name. The name, executive functioning skills. And that is part of the explanation. But most importantly, it has a solution. That moment, that is one of the most powerful moments I witness in this work. Because in that moment, something shifts. The shame starts to lift. The question stops being, what is wrong with me? And starts being, what do I actually need? Today, I want to walk you through what it actually costs a person to go through life without these skills. Not to make you feel bad, not to make you grieve. That time has already passed, but so that you fully understand what is at stake and what becomes possible the moment you start building what was never given to you. I want to tell you something I do not say lightly. I spent most of my life doing fine. Better than fine, actually. Smart, emotionally intelligent, capable, well enough that nobody looked too closely at the gap between where I was and what I was actually capable of. But I knew that gap was there. I felt it. I just did not have a name for it. I was not great at initiating the hard things. In fact, I avoided them most of the time. I managed my time in a way that worked just well enough, but left me perpetually behind the pace I knew I was capable of. I people pleased instead of setting boundaries because my emotional regulation under pressure was not as strong as it actually appeared. I played it safe in every area of my life. Not because I lacked desire, but because I lacked the specific skill set to move through uncertainty that comes along with risk. Nobody told me these were skills. Nobody sat me down and said, Ashley, here are the 11 things that will determine whether your potential becomes your reality. Here is how to build them. I figured it out later than I should have. I carry some deep regret about that. But I also carry a very specific kind of fire about making sure that other people do not carry the same regret that I have. Because here is what I know now. The gap between who you are and who you were created to be is almost never a talent gap. It is almost never a desire gap. It is almost always a skill gap. And a skill gap can be closed. That is the whole point of this channel. That is why I am here. I want to walk you through, though, what it actually looks like when someone navigates life without fully developed executive functioning skills, because I want you to see yourself or someone you love in this, not to judge, to understand. Because when task initiation is underdeveloped, important things do not get started. Not because the person does not care, because the activation energy required to begin is simply too high without the right strategies. The result is missed opportunities, unfinished projects, and a growing pile of things the person genuinely wanted to do but could not seem to start. When time management is underdeveloped, time disappears. Days end without the most important things being touched. Deadlines arrive as surprises. The future does not feel real until it's almost already here. The result is chronic lateness, last minute everything, and the exhausting cycle of planning and falling short. When emotional regulation or control is underdeveloped, relationships absorb the impact. The response that comes out is bigger than the situation warranted. The shutdown that protects the person also isolates them. The result is damaged relationships, accumulated guilt, and the painful belief that something is fundamentally wrong with how that person is wired. When working memory is underdeveloped, important things fall through the cracks. The instruction that was heard but not retained. The task remembered and then lost. The conversation followed in the moment and gone an hour later. The result is the appearance of not caring, not listening, not trying. When the truth is, the brain simply did not hold what it needed to hold. When planning and goal setting are underdeveloped, potential stays just that, potential. The dream exists, the desire exists, the capability actually exists. But without the ability to map a path from here to there and hold to it over time, nothing moves. The result is the quiet grief of a life that keeps almost happening. I could go through all 11, but I think you understand what I am saying. The cost of going without these skills is not small. It shows up in your career, your relationship, your finances, your sense of self, and the distance between who you are and who you know you were meant to be. And here's the part I need you to hear clearly. None of that is your fault. You cannot typically build a skill that nobody taught you. You cannot use a tool you were never given. You were not lazy. You were not broken. You were not behind because something was wrong with you. You were behind because nobody handed you what you needed. That ends right here. Of all 11 executive functioning skills, the one I want you to start with today is self-awareness, because you cannot build what you cannot see. And the most powerful thing you can do right now, in this moment today, is to look honestly at which of these 11 skills has cost you the most. Not to judge yourself, not to spiral, to see clearly, because clarity is when change begins. Here's a simple practice I call the cost and commitment inventory. It takes about 10 minutes and it will tell you more about where to focus your energy than most things you could do today. So here's step 1. Name the cost. Look back at the 11 skills. Which one, when underdeveloped, has caused the most friction in your life? Which one shows up most consistently in the moments you're not proud of or the outcomes that you did not want? Write it down. Just one. The one that cost you the most. Try this. Step 2. Name the evidence. Write down 2 or 3 specific moments, real situations from your actual life where the skill gap showed up and cost you something. A relationship, an opportunity, a deadline, a version of yourself you wished had shown up differently. Be specific. Specificity is what makes this real instead of abstract. How about step 3? name the opposite. What would that skill look like if it were fully developed in you? Not perfect, fully developed. What would you do differently in those moments? How would your relationships feel? How would your professional life look? Write down the vision, not just the problem. And finally, step 4, make one commitment. What is one thing you are willing to do this week to begin building that skill? Not the whole skill, just one thing. Watch the next video in this series. Download a planning template. Practice the pause before you react. Name one thing and commit to it before you close this video. That's your starting point. One skill, one cost, one commitment, 1 week. Because this is not about fixing everything at once. It is about beginning. And beginning, as I have learned the hard way, is the most important thing you will ever do. In the weeks ahead, we are going to go deep on every one of these 11 skills. We're going to talk about what each one looks like when it is underdeveloped, what it costs, and exactly how to build it. At any age, at any stage, no matter where you are starting from. We are going to talk about how these skills affect your relationships, your marriage, your children, your friendships, your professional life. We are going to talk about what happens when you finally understand why things have been hard and what becomes possible when you stop blaming yourself and start building instead. This channel is for you. If you're a parent watching your child struggle with the same things you struggled with and not knowing how to help. It's for you if you're an adult who has achieved things, but at a cost that nobody else can see. It's for you if you're a student who knows you're capable of more, but cannot seem to make the gap between your potential and your performance close. It's for the person who has spent years asking, why is this all so hard? And is finally ready for an actual answer. That's what we're building here, together. I want to say one more thing before I let you go today. If you watched last week's video and something in you shifted, if you heard the names of those 11 skills and felt something you've been feeling your whole life finally get named, I want you to know that feeling is accurate. You are not imagining the gap. You are not being dramatic about how hard it has been. You are not making excuses. You were right. It was harder for you. And now you know why. And knowing why is not the end of the story. It's actually the beginning of a completely different one. Subscribe so you do not miss what's coming next. Share this with someone whose story you just heard in mine. And leave me a comment. I actually read all of them. Tell me which of the 11 skills that has cost you the most. I really want to know, because I genuinely believe that the person watching this right now has more potential than they ever have been given the tools to reach. I'm going to spend the rest of this channel proving that to you. Real skills, real life, real change. Make the connection.